In the early 1970s, Colorado towns like this one were defined by a certain gravity. It's a working-class landscape where the options for the future feel as fixed as the mountains in the distance. Inside the home, the air is just as heavy. Everything in this room feels conditional, as if the right to be comfortable or safe could be revoked by the people who own the walls. That authority belongs to Jack. He's a Vietnam veteran who carries a philosophy of force into every room. His logic is simple. When something doesn't comply, you apply more pressure, more volume, more weight. Watching him is Alan. He is 9 years old, small and still. He knows, without being told, that a child cannot outmuscle a man who walked out of a war. Force is a game he is destined to lose. When a system relies entirely on the threat of escalating pressure, it creates an inescapable trap for anyone who lacks physical leverage. If the only tool is force, the person with less of it is effectively erased. Alan stops trying to fight back and starts watching. He begins mapping how the house actually functions, who is expected to obey, and who is allowed to give the orders. He eventually finds a gap in the logic. Jack makes the rules, but Jack also breaks them. He demands a level of discipline that he refuses to apply to himself. Authority of this kind depends on absolute consistency. The moment a leader exempts himself from his own mandates, the logic of his power dissolves. He is no longer enforcing a rule, he is just exercising a whim. Eventually, the weight of those contradictions becomes unsustainable. Jack leaves. There is no battle, no climactic confrontation. The structure of his authority simply fails because he can no longer stand on ground he has spent years hollowing out. For the observer, this provides a different way to look at power. The rule maker is often the person most trapped by the rules they've created, and their own hypocrisy is the first sign the system is ready to collapse. A decade later, the setting changes to Ramstein, Germany. The environment at 32nd AIDCOM is military functional, cinder blocks, industrial paint, and a rigid, visible hierarchy. Army Alan is now a young private. He lives in a world where sergeants move freely through the common areas, while privates position themselves with care to stay out of the crosshairs. The leadership here uses a familiar playbook: compliance or else. It is the same escalating pressure Jack used, just applied through the formal machinery of the army. The sergeants turn the regulation book into a weapon. They single out a private named Reese for every minor infraction, piling on extra duty to force him into submission. This brand of authority relies on the assumption that the people at the bottom will accept the pressure without ever checking to see if the people at the top are actually following the regulations they cite. When the threats of extra duty come again, Reese doesn't argue. He doesn't offer more force. He simply reaches for a small black notebook. Inside is a record of every regulation the sergeants themselves have broken, every missed salute, every uniform violation, every time an enforcer ignored the very rules they used to punish Reese. Reese cites the dates, he cites the names. Then he respectfully requests that the sergeants join him for the extra duty, since the regulation applies to both of them equally. The confrontation dissolves instantly. Without a single shout or a raised hand, the power differential in the room completely flips. Reese didn't use counterpressure to win, he used precision. He held up a mirror to the hypocrisy of the system, and in doing so, he stripped the sergeants of their only source of leverage. Walking alone through a quiet hallway near the chaplain's office, Alan finds a framed document on the wall. He stops to read a single line. Don't think you've changed a man's opinion simply because you have silenced him. It is the same truth he first recognized as a child in Colorado. You can use force to produce compliance, but that compliance is a hollow shell. It has no foundation. Rules create a cage. If the person who built that cage thinks they can step outside of it, they've already destroyed the lock. They've made the rules meaningless. Force built on hypocrisy doesn't need to be defeated. It needs to be exposed. More pressure never works. Precision does.